Let us pray. As Canadians and as Albertans, we give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we rededicate ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Minister of Energy.
Speaker, I'm very pleased today to introduce to the members of the Legislative Assembly the Minister responsible for petroleum resources for Albania, Mr. Abdul Chaya, and he is accompanied by Mr. Nestor Babamito. Mr. Speaker, I met the Honourable Minister at the National Petroleum Show in Calgary, invited him to Edmonton for meetings and to see how our legislature works. I'd like the Minister to stand with his guests and receive the welcome of our Assembly.
Presenting petitions.
Member for Tabor-Warner.
Speaker, I would like to file with the Assembly a petition signed by 40cans in the Warner, New Dayton area. The petition requests that the Government of Alberta raise the legal age of drinking from 18 to 21 and that we review our censorship laws as they relate to crime, violence, and sex on television and in movies. The petition further requests the federal government to change the Young Offenders Act and to review the Charter of Rights as it relates to crime.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Provincial. Someone trying to get in on introduction. Thank you. Thank you. Provincial Treasurer.
Please introduce Bill number 35. The Lottery Transfer Act 1992, this being a money bill, His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, has been informed of the contents of this bill and recommends the same to the Assembly.
The Honourable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading of Bill number 35, Lottery Fund Transfer Act 1992. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 35, Lottery Fund Transfer Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 37, the Financial Administration Act 1992. This is a money bill, and His Honor, the Honourable the Lieutenant Governor, has been informed of the contents of this bill and recommends the same to the Assembly.
Order. We're not going to have this day carry on in that way like yesterday. The Honourable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading to Bill 37, Financial Administration Amendment Act 1992. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 37, Financial Administration Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
Honourable Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 38, the Alberta Income Tax Amendment Act 92. This being a money bill, His Honor, the Honourable the Lieutenant Governor, having been informed of the contents of this bill, recommends the same to the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Income Tax Act is a tax reduction for Albertans.
The Honourable members, at first readings, it really is not the custom of the House to be making comments. The Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading to Bill number 38, Alberta Income Tax Amendment Act 1992. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 38, Alberta Income Tax Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
Provincial Treasurer.
Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 39, the Alberta Corporate Tax Amendment Act 1992. Speaker, this being a money bill, His Honor, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor, having been advised of the contents of this bill, recommends the same to the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the Bill number 39, the Alberta Corporate Tax Amendment Act, is a tax reduction for Alberta corporations involved in manufacturing and processing in this province.
The Honorable Provincial Treasurer has moved for first reading Bill number 39, Alberta Corporate Tax Amendment Act 1992. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 39, Alberta Corporate Tax Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
Additional introductions. Bill 302, Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 302, an Environmental Bill of Rights. This bill recognizes the right of the people of Alberta to a healthy and sustainable environment and provides Albertans with adequate remedies to protect and conserve the environment, including protection for whistleblowers and the right to access government information relating to the environment and its protection.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Meadowlark has moved first reading of Bill 302, Environmental Bill of Rights Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 302, Environmental Bill of Rights Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Mitchell, is now read a first time.
Westlock Sturgeon.
I request leave to introduce Bill number 304, being a bill to set up the office of a treaty commissioner modeled on the office in Saskatchewan that has successfully brought together Aboriginal peoples and the provincial and federal governments, thus facilitating the settlement of treaty claims.
The Honourable Member for Westlock Sturgeon has moved first reading of Bill 304, Office of Treaty Commissioner Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 304, Office of Treaty Commissioner Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Taylor, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce Bill 310, the Forest Industry Development Administration Act. This bill would end the conflict of interest within the Department of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife by moving the Forest Industry Development branch to the Department of Economic Development and Trade, thus allowing the Department of Forestry to concentrate on the conservation of forests, fish and wildlife.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Meadowlark has moved first reading of Bill 310, Forest Industry Development Administration Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 310, Forest Industry Development Administration Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Mitchell, is now read a first time.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 311 in the Dairy Industry Amendment Act. This bill would exempt tofu-based products from the Dairy Industry Act, thus allowing such products to be legally sold in Alberta and giving Albertans a greater freedom of choice in the food that they consume.
The Honourable Member for Westlock Sturgeon has moved Bill number 311 for first reading. Dairy Industry Amendment Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 311, Dairy Industry Amendment Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Taylor, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, today I am tabling the required copies of the Alberta Agricultural Products Marketing Council Annual Report. I'm also filing a copy of a press release that was issued earlier today in recognition of the fact that today is Farmers' Day.
Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased today to table the annual reports of the following technical institutes: the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, and Westera Institute of Technology.
9 to go.
Minister of Education.
Speaker, I'm filing with the Assembly today 4 copies of the consultation paper that is being distributed across the province regarding a single diploma for high school graduation.
Additional. Westlock Sturgeon.
Just filing today the required copies of 2 letters to caucus member from the Solicitor General's Department and from the Phoenix Institute in Calgary, showing that indeed the reason that the lack or the clients referred to the Phoenix program, the Woods Home, had declined because the Solicitor General himself cut off the referrals.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Drumheller.
Mr. Speaker, it is indeed a pleasure for me to introduce to you and through you to all members of the Assembly this morning 27 students from St. Anthony's School in Drumheller. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Jerry Hamilton, parents and helpers, Mr. Jerry Makachek, Mrs. Louise Lynch, Mrs. Carla Erickson, Mr. Frank Coleman, and Mrs. Holly Gutterson. They are seated in both galleries, both members in public galleries, and I'd ask them all to stand and receive the traditional warm welcome in the Assembly.
Minister of Family and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Legislative Assembly 45 students plus parents and teachers from West Park Elementary School in the constituency of Red Deer South. The students are accompanied by teachers Mr. Drew Allred, Mrs. Pat Churchill, Mrs. Wilma Clausen, and parents Mrs. Chris Bellamy, Mrs. Margaret Perrin, Mr. Tom Beebe, Laurel Douglas, Kathy Hardy, and Michelle Campbell. They are seated in the members' gallery, Mr. Speaker, and I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, I'm hoping that the people are here, but I'd like to introduce, Mr. Speaker, 37 Eastwood School students from Edmonton, Norwood, Mr. Speaker. They're accompanied by their teachers, Mr. Kazimski and Mr. Casco. I'm told they're seated in the public library. I'd ask them to stand and public gallery, sorry. I'd ask them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. What did I say?
If they want to go to the public library afterward, that's okay. We're glad they came here first.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Speaker, I guess we should welcome back the Deputy Premier. I understand. I understand he's been having a good time in Ottawa, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the latest attempt, though, at finding common constitutional ground in this country wound down in Ottawa yesterday. I understand with at least I hope, with a faint glimmer of hope that the country may yet be saved. Mr. Speaker, the government of Saskatchewan has put forward a proposal for Senate reform that has attracted interest from a significant number of provinces, Mr. Speaker, and I'd say to all members, the time has come now for statesmen, not politicians, as we deal with these difficult constitutional issues. My question to the Deputy Premier, will the Deputy Premier update us on the status of Alberta's position in the constitutional negotiations, specifically in regard to Saskatchewan's proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be providing all members with a record of the proceedings that have gone on to date. That document was being put together late in the afternoon yesterday in Ottawa. I don't have copies of that yet, that by the beginning of the week, all members will be in receipt of that document. And I think that will show where we have been dealing with and obtaining some considerable success on a broad range of issues. On the subject of Senate reform, it has been an intense few days in Ottawa. Relative to a proposal now put forward by Saskatchewan, we have indicated that we will seriously consider that document and see how the elements that we have been seeking, primarily as laid forth in the Select Special Committee report relative to Senate reform, as to how those elements that our Select Committee and as reflecting the views of Albertans, how those fit into what is now advanced by the Saskatchewan proposal. I should tell you, Mr. Speaker, that the logjam between those supporting a Triple E Senate and those supporting what they call an equitable model looked like it was almost impossible to overcome. And it was really as a result of some remarks from Premier McKenna of New Brunswick that I picked up and then relayed to our Premier, and he then relayed to New Brunswick, and then Quebec was brought in, and then Saskatchewan and the other parties, that the whole thing started to come together. And we are very interested in what Saskatchewan has proposed, because when it comes to dealing with matters affecting vital provincial interests, the provinces would be represented absolutely equally in terms of the voting power of the members of this new body. And there is obviously concern about continuing the name of Senate, given the fact that the current Senate is in such disrepute. So I think that we're serious. It was a serious suggestion. Obviously, it requires intensive review, though, and we are going to embark on that in the next few days.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the major considerations that I've always understood from this government is that they are concerned about the possibility of a future national energy program. Well, Mr. Speaker, this proposal appears to go some distance towards that by giving equal voting on matters regarding new taxation on natural resources. My question, which seems to satisfy that part of it, the Deputy Premier says they're looking at it. Obviously, they haven't adopted it. I'll come at it a different way, Mr. Speaker. What reservations does the Deputy Premier have, then, about the Saskatchewan government proposals?
Well, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is quite correct in saying that this appears to resolve, if accepted, that very major concern to Albertans. But we want to make sure that it does, with absolute certainty. The reservation we would have relates to how the so-called equitable voting process might be brought into play. And that would not give equal weight to all provinces' elected members. And that is what we're going to examine, as to whether or not there would be anything that weighted voting concept would have in terms of impacting on provinces. So I'm not ruling it out. I want the members to understand we welcome this initiative as a very thoughtful and considered approach by the provinces that were working together to achieve a Triple E. And our Premier has been in lengthy conversations today with Primo, and I will, of course, continue my ministerial conversations over the weekend with the Attorney General of Saskatchewan and others who are concerned about seeing this advance, and with Quebec and Ontario, because we know that unless those two provinces can support major changes, they will not come about. And the federal government obviously still has to be shown that what is in the proposal will meet their approval, because keep in mind this, the federal government has an absolute veto on any constitutional changes whatsoever. Too much attention has been focused on the provinces and not enough on the fact that the federal government alone could stop this. So we are seriously considering it. I hope that early next week we will be able to be more definitive, but we did welcome the initiative. We participated in working towards it in the sense that we want the issue explored, and we are very serious about it, and we are very thankful that Premier Romano, quite frankly, was able to stand considerable pressure just to collapse on the issue. He did not, and we very much appreciate the role that he has played.
Mr. Speaker, I might say to the Deputy Premier, New Democratic governments always bring forward topics. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, just to follow up, because time is of the essence here, and I hope that this government, along with the federal government and other governments, are in a nation-building process and not contributing to the destruction of our country. But time is somewhat of the essence, Mr. Speaker, and I'd ask the Deputy Premier, can he be a little more specific on what the time frame is, where they're going to respond formally to the Saskatchewan proposal, and is that then going to lead to a First Minister's Conference, if he could update us on that?
Oh, I would think, I hope that the Leader of the Opposition's optimism relative to the positions of new democratic governments would transfer to Ontario, and if he can help us at all in that respect, I would be very grateful indeed. And I say that because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has, in his conversations with me, been very clear that this is not a partisan issue relative to Alberta in terms of seeking for the people of this province the opportunity to see the second chamber of Parliament really act as a federal, in a federal context as it should. We hope, obviously, to signal to not just the other partners in Federation and the federal government, but through discussions with our Cabinet and caucus as early as possible, and as a result of these telephone conference type of arrangements very, very soon. As we left the meeting yesterday, all governments, territories, the Aboriginal representatives made it clear that we want to move very soon, because Canadians need to be reassured that this phase, which is now ended, will be replaced by another phase of constitutional reform which will lead us to ensuring that this country remains a strong and united Canada. And that commitment has always been here on the part of this legislature. And all members, I trust, will join with me in indicating that we are determined to keep Canada whole.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, earlier on today, the Treasurer gave us some very interesting information, Mr. Speaker. Remember last year, balanced budget, so-called balanced budget, Mr. Speaker? Then he came back in June and said, I've got a balanced budget, $33 million surplus, Mr. Speaker, but shucks, just let me borrow another $2 billion just in case, Mr. Speaker. Well, same old story continues, Mr. Speaker. He says this year's deficit would be $2.4 billion, but shucks, folks, trust me, I just want to be able to borrow an extra $4 billion. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Treasurer is, if his projections are right, which they never are, why is he asking the Assembly to authorize an additional $4 billion in debt borrowing, Mr. Speaker?
Here, here.
Speaker, the bill introduced today, of course, is consistent with the financial plan, which was been debated here and introduced in the budget. And as I said last year, two things. First of all, we come back to the Assembly to ensure that everyone, including all members of the Assembly and all Albertans, understand how the province is managing its debt at this point. And we have put on the table already this past session full information as to the amount of outstanding debt. Currently, Mr. Speaker, we've had a full debate in the Legislative Assembly about the estimates. We're now in a phase of the financial plan of the province, which requires us from time to time to borrow money. First of all, we'll be borrowing money to finance the deficit and the capital projects of this province, including universities and healthcare projects which have been announced. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, we need to have the flexibility inside those numbers to refinance some debt which was borrowed in 1985-86. All in all, Mr. Speaker, this is a reasonable plan. It's square with the fiscal plan that we put forward, and of course would allow us to go from sometime in the middle of 92 right through to 93 when the Assembly rises again.
This is the absolute drivel that we got last year with their balanced budget. Mr. Speaker, we have a government totally out of control here. And he's saying, you already acknowledged the capital projects. That's supposed to be in your budget for $2.4 billion, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
What are you covering up? Why are you now asking for $4 billion extra? That'll take our debt to $17.5 billion, Mr. Speaker.
Whoa.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, the member gets off in space here. I know it's Friday morning. I know he's been traveling the province and hasn't had a whole lot of support at the meetings that he's gone to. And I know there's a sense of frustration that he really has not provided an alternative to any of the policies which we've offered. And I can understand, and I'm fully, sometimes I even feel sympathy for the member from Norwood, the problems he has. But, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing here is presenting to Albertans a reasonable plan which will manage our position for the current fiscal year. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, last year we borrowed 13.5. We had limits of 13.5 billion, as the member pointed out. We ended the year at about $12.2 billion. We had that flexibility, I agree, Mr. Speaker, but we have to have the flexibility because we now have some outstanding debt which will mature this year, some $2 billion. And obviously, to be able to manage your position, you have to have the flexibility. And that's essentially what we're doing. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, as the time progresses, you'll see that our forecast this year is pretty close to accurate. I can report already, although I don't want to pre-guess where we stand, that in fact the price of oil already this year has been far above our forecast. We're not making any particular change in our forecast, but we have had good signals, and Mr. Speaker, I think that currently our forecast is right on point.
Mr. Speaker, flexibility for this treasurer is like giving matches to an arsonist, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal plan that he's talking about, this great fiscal plan, is to go more and more and more in debt.
Right.
Up to $17.5 billion. This is nonsense. Ask us to come back and give him the right to borrow more without telling us why. We want to know why, Mr. Speaker. Isn't part of the reason the mismanagement with the MagCans, the Novotels, and all the rest of the mismanagement that you have to come back and ask for more?
Well, Mr. Speaker, over the course of the next couple of months between now and the end of July, we'll have an ample opportunity to debate the balance of these fiscal bills that I introduced. There are, Mr. Speaker, some important additional bills coming. And when you see them all together, you'll see the framework of the policy. And here's how the policy will really work, Mr. Speaker, is what we have done is presented to Albertans a reasonable plan which currently supports the high level of services that we provide to Albertans, including a major focus on health and education. And we have balanced that, Mr. Speaker, by reasonably adjusting our position today to take account of a downturn in the economy around the world, which has impacted here. And that's why I complimented our borrowing position today, Mr. Speaker, by introducing two key bills. And those two key bills, in fact, are tax cuts for Albertans. Now, Albertans know that we want to get the economy back on track. You saw today that the prime rate is coming down. And now we're going to complement and provide that additional injection of confidence by cutting taxes.
No other government in Canada has had the initiative except the federal government to cut taxes. All other socialist governments have been increasing taxes. And we are about to embark, Mr. Speaker, on a revival of this economy. We're going to make it grow. We're going to generate jobs, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to do it on a reasonable planned basis.
I'm sure in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, honorable members are going to miss this kind of morning. Edmonton Glengarry on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the minister responsible for Novotel. Albertans have learned, Mr. Speaker, that their monies have lined the pockets of entrepreneurs in the United States, paid wages. They've learned that interest charges have been paid using Alberta taxpayers' monies, and the day-to-day operations of corporations in the United States have come from Alberta taxpayers' monies. Speaker, I've learned from a senior executive of Novotel that other working capital arrangements have in fact been made with other corporations in the United States. I've learned that the nature of those agreements are a term of 7 years, that the first 2 years of the term is interest-free, that the next 5 costs are capitalized. In other words, interest charges are put back into capitalization and capitalized. I've learned that monies were used to buy land and to buy buildings. I've learned that monies were used for day-to-day operations, and we know used for paying wages. My first question to the minister is this. The minister defends the usual working or usual marketing practices of Novotel. I want to know from the minister whether he approves of the way these working capital arrangements were made with American corporations.
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated previously, the parameters for the financing that was granted to purchasers of cellular systems in the United States was established by the Novotel board in 1988. The basis of those parameters provided for financing for the equipment itself, and indeed some working capital for startup costs, and also acquisition of those things that are pertinent to and relevant to the establishment of that cellular system. That's the basis of the financing arrangements they entered into. Whether those were the correct decisions by Novotel at that time or not, it was taken in the context of marketing initiatives. If they wanted to be involved in the market in the United States, and obviously Novotel at that time did, then they made those sort of arrangements as part of their marketing thrust. But, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader questions that decision. I think there are a number of unanswered questions with respect to all aspects of Novotel, and that's particularly why we have made an attempt to have absolutely everything reviewed in the fullness of all detail and make sure that those answers are there.
Mr. Speaker, it's true that I question those obscene working capital arrangements, and obviously the minister does not question them. He continues to defend them. My second question to the minister is this. My source, the senior executive at Novotel, tells me that there are other corporations that got these kind of working capital sweetheart deals. Mr. Minister, tell us the names of the other corporations.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, the unusual type of circumstances that we have been raised in this House, and indeed we've seen in the media, pertain primarily, I think, to one corporation, that General Cellular Corporation, and that was part and parcel of a settlement that the Board of Management, or the Management Committee that was established, was entered into in order to prevent that particular company from going into that account is now settled. It was an account of some $78 million. It was settled in the neighborhood of $33 million because they were able to prevent it from going into bankruptcy. Now again, whether that's the right decision on behalf of the taxpayers or not, that's again the reason why the Auditor General should review that and every other aspect of that portfolio.
You're right.
Mr. Speaker, we know that General Cellular in California got $80 million of taxpayers' money, $60 million for systems financing, $20 million for day-to-day operations. For the record, Mr. Minister, for the record, are you saying that no other American corporations got the sweetheart working capital arrangements from Novotel and the taxpayers of Alberta?
Speaker, what I am saying is that at the time that the management committee was put in place when we had to take back Novotel, which was in January of 1991, there were 3 accounts that were outstanding in default at that point in time, one of which the honourable member has referred to. That was settled, and I've given the basis upon which that was settled. And the other 2 are still under restructuring and hoping to resolve those, the management committee. That's the basis that they found the situation, and that's the basis of their instructions we gave to them, was to clean up those accounts and make the best possible decisions in the best interest of the taxpayer.
Red Deer North, called by Edmonton Abbott.
Mr. Speaker, my question to the Deputy Premier. The so-called Saskatchewan proposal seems to focus the equality provision on natural resources as being a provincial jurisdiction, and that on that particular area equality should exist. But there are other areas of jurisdiction that are important to Alberta and that we have discussed. There's areas looking, for instance, at taxation. There's a number of different areas that are very important. And I'm wondering, though the focus has been appropriate for the Tripoli and for the equal, have other areas been minimized in terms of our own concerns in jurisdictional areas because of our focus simply on the Tripoli?
Oh, well, I think that the use of the National Energy Program as an example of what could happen and what did happen to the smaller provinces when the full weight of Ontario's demands were placed on the West in particular, has perhaps been, it's been extremely important to point that out as one thing that might be resolved by having an effective Senate in place. But there are many other aspects, obviously, that we are of concern as well. And the Saskatchewan proposal, as we see it initially, would also move significantly to prevent those types of things happening in other areas of vital concern to the provinces. And that was the term that leapt out at me in the news report of Premier McKenna's statement. In areas of vital concern to the provinces, there should be the principle of equality. Now, that type of wording was discussed with the Attorney General of Saskatchewan as he left on the Challenger jet to go to New York to pick up his premier, and I know it was discussed discussed with the Premier of Saskatchewan as they were putting together their proposal on the return visit to Ottawa. So those issues, while we've concentrated, obviously, by using the National Energy Program as an example, we are not confining our concern to that alone. And in my view, we're examining the Saskatchewan proposal very carefully to see that it is much broader in its scope than just relating solely to non-renewable natural resources.
Mr. Speaker, the federal government, it's very clear, controls the country through its weighted population base in central Canada and also through the provisions in the Supreme Court. There's virtually absolute total control. When the Deputy Premier has confronted the NDP Ontario government and the Liberal Quebec government with the challenge to look to the national interest in terms of the equality provisions that we're putting forth, to take it beyond provincial need and power bases and look to the national interest, what has been their response?
From the discussions which we've had relative to with Quebec, and obviously they're not negotiating with us at the table, but I went on Monday of this week and met further with my colleague at the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. We're moving to a pretty good understanding of how important it is to Quebec as well as to Alberta and other provinces to see that there is a body within the federal parliament which is of interest, has an interest in ensuring that the federation works. I have to say that in Ontario's case, they have been slow to move in terms of that, but I was encouraged end of the discussions, and particularly yesterday, and from my reports on this meeting that took place with Mr. Clark, Mr. Romano, the other provincial premiers at the meeting, that Ontario is seriously considering this concern as well. And while they haven't yet indicated their intention to respect the principle of equality of the provinces, in the Senate, Premier Ray did point out more than once how they recognize that in the preamble to or in the interpretive clause, the Canada clause, the principle of the equality of the provinces will be part of that clause, and how the amending formula itself provides in some instances for the equality of the provinces. So I'm not certainly ruling out at this stage that Ontario can be persuaded that it is in the national interest to have a federal parliament which recognizes the federal principle in the second chamber. So we're going to make that point over and over again with them and during the course of the next few days, and I hope that at the end they will accept that principle as well as the other provinces that have done so, and I hope the federal government will accept that principle.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Edmonton Avamore, Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister of Family and Social Services. Mr. Speaker, in spite of the government's rhetoric about increasing support to initiatives dealing with violence in the family, Edmonton's Wynn House faces its first budget deficit, a deficit of $90,000. The 2.5% grant increase fails to meet the 4.5% increase in core costs. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister, given that the overburdened community already provides almost one-third of the projected funding, will the Minister now commit to meeting the shortfall?
Maybe out of that.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the ratio of funding varies from community to community, and some are able to better function and operate within the parameters that we've established in the past. But the member knows that I'm committed to continue to work with the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. We're in the process right now, Mr. Speaker, of establishing an appropriate funding model. Obviously, we'll take into consideration the circumstances that are affecting a very valuable community resource here in Edmonton, being Wynn House. But Mr. Speaker, outside of that, nothing more can be done.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we see this government being able to send millions of dollars down to the U.S. to buy off high-priced executives. It would be nice if we saw a similar initiative to our shelters.
Good shot.
Mr. Speaker, this deficit is based on a budget which provides very inadequate salaries for workers. For instance, a crisis worker paid a starting wage of $21,600 a year, and that's a shame. Workers agree to very low wages because to do otherwise means that shelters will close. How does the minister justify the intensified exploitation of workers caused by forcing shelters into deficit funding situations?
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out, and the member knows that it is a partnership situation where we're working hand in hand with communities. Communities on a local basis and establishing their own priorities, Mr. Speaker, are raising some of the funds. We're assisting them with funds on a provincial basis.
In terms of salaries that are paid, Mr. Speaker, those are something that are established between boards of directors and societies that are running the various facilities across the province, and that is something, Mr. Speaker, that they'll have to address.
McKnight.
Monsieur le Président. On March 10th, the Premier, in a meeting with the French-Canadian Society of Alberta, promised that the bill amending the School Act, giving Francophones management of their own schools, would become law within 6 to 8 weeks. 3 months later, that legislation hasn't even been introduced. Alberta would receive positive recognition nationally for taking a leadership role in this issue, and this would be consistent with Alberta's support for the Canada Clause, which protects English and French minorities. My question is to the Deputy Premier. Where is the bill, Mr. Deputy Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I believe that the government will be bringing forward legislation to amend the School Act within the next week.
That's wonderful, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to ask the Minister then, in regard to the special federal-provincial funding arrangements which will cover the costs of implementation, will you be accessing those as soon as that bill is promulgated?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Followed by Edmonton Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, it's now been about a decade since the Electrical Energy Marketing Agency was formed in an attempt to pool the generation and transmission costs of the 3 utilities in Alberta, thereby averaging electricity costs for our consumers. As the Minister of Energy well knows, many of our constituents in Calgary and in the rural south feel that the goal of averaging electricity costs has not been achieved, and that they are subsidizing unfairly the power costs of consumers here in Edmonton and in northern Alberta. In view of these public perceptions, Mr. Speaker, there obviously is widespread interest in the work of the review panel now reviewing this sensitive issue. Can the minister bring the members up to date as to the panel's progress and activities?
That's a real policy question. Mr. Speaker, as the honourable members know, as all honourable members know, the original mandate of the Electric Energy Marketing Act, which came forward in the early 80s, was to foster balanced economic growth across the province. And we felt that in 1992, it was an appropriate time to review those original objectives as set out in that original policy. We felt that by putting together a public panel of 7 respected Albertans to hear from Albertans, it was important to engender wide public discussion, because there are Albertans from all corners of this province are going to have to come to terms with the manner in which electric energy is distributed and generated and transmitted in this province, Mr. Speaker. The EMA review panel has had 4 meetings to date, just concluded its meetings in Fort McMurray, I believe, yesterday and the day before, and will continue with, I believe, 3 other meetings in the province, Mr. Speaker. I would hope that from the 800 written submissions and 200 oral presentations, that Albertans are measured in their response, do consider the best interests of the province and economic development, and that the panel is able to make the right decision for all Albertans.
Mr. Speaker, given the intense interest of electrical consumers throughout the province in the review panel's findings and eventual recommendations, can the minister provide us with his best estimate as to when the review panel's work will be completed and their report presented to the government?
Mr. Speaker, I'm tempted to use a term that the Deputy Premier uses, and that is in due course in the fullness of time. But I won't. I'll resist using that terminology, Mr. Speaker, and I will say that it is my hope that by sometime during the end of August, first part of September, we will have a report, final report back from the panel, and then thereafter the government will have to come to terms with the original mandate and whether or not the changes should be made to be contemporary with NITU.
Kingsway.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yesterday a U.S.-based cellular analyst said that Novotel was seen by neophyte rural cellular operators as having a direct pipeline into the pockets of Alberta taxpayers. She went on to describe that Novatel's system of financing approach was very unprofessional. To the minister responsible for Novatel, how can this minister continue to claim that Novatel followed normal business practices in extending credit when all the evidence so far suggests that Novatel was simply used as a cash cow by cellular companies in the United States?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I explained earlier, the basis of the financing arrangements that were entered into by the Novatel board and the parameters set back in 1988 on the basis of their marketing operations and the nature of the competition and what the competitors were doing. And to the extent that those decisions were appropriate or not at that time, I leave for the Auditor General to look at, as he will in the fullness of time.
It sounds like the minister is backing off from his previous stand, but let's follow up a similar line. Other U.S. analysts have described Novatel's financing terms as more like venture capital arrangements than normal system financing. In fact, we have examples of them funding operating costs and paying bank debts. To the minister, apart from generously lining the pocket of some...
I'm sure honourable members have enough courtesy left in them to listen to the member for Edmonton Kingsway as he puts his question.
Yes, to the minister, apart from generously lining the pocket of some self-styled executives of neophyte American companies, can the minister explain to the taxpayers of Alberta what good has come out of Novatel's disastrous foray into systems financing?
Quite frankly, I'm having a little difficulty even working out a question out of the honourable member's comments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the basis upon which the decisions were made at that time by the Novatel board, as I say, were in the context of the times, the marketing conditions that prevailed in the industry, and those decisions were made by that board at that time, and we're now, I think it's time to re-examine those, see whether they're appropriate in the best interest of the taxpayers.
Calgary Mountain View followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, a rating agency and once again reduced Alberta's debt rating. Mr. Speaker, the only thing dropping faster is this government's popularity and their prospects of being re-elected. To the provincial treasurer, Mr. Speaker, when the rating agencies lowered Alberta's credit rating earlier this year, were they aware that the provincial treasurer would be raising our debt to $7,000 for every man, woman, and child in Alberta?
Well, Speaker, this is in the era of pure speculation, which the member is well known to be involved in. He always forecasts the worst scenario. What he has obviously done, Mr. Speaker, is taken the maximum exposure, and that's not exactly what we're intending to do. The point, Mr. Speaker, that has to be made is, as I've said already to the member from Glengarry, is that if you take the current debt levels we have today, which have been passed by this Assembly, fully debated here, and add to it the projected deficit, which has been fully debated in this Assembly and well understood by Albertans, you'll then need additional opportunity to finance that level of borrowing. And that's why, on a responsible parliamentary basis, we come back to the Legislative Assembly every year to ensure that Albertans understand what's happening. And I think that's why, Mr. Speaker, we're in this process of now discussing with Albertans how it is we can reduce some of these programs to ensure that they're more client-sensitive, so that we can rethink some of the ways in which these government programs are being expended. We're simply setting forth the alternatives. You've seen already my colleague, Minister responsible for seniors, the Minister of Health as well, have embarked on this process. And this, in particular debate, Mr. Speaker, is quite helpful, and I appreciate the two members raising it, because it does focus on the fact that Alberta has to do better in the future, we have to manage better in the future, we have to control the deficit, and all of this plan, Mr. Speaker, will do just that. And, Mr. Speaker, I can assure Albertans that we're in the process of managing our way out of it. We have to have the additional flexibility, obviously, as we have indicated. And this is a very simple arithmetic calculation. But to take it down the road of speculation, as the member has just done,
It's just like all the other socialist policies, absolutely in the dream world.
Spaced out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For many Alberta families, their share of the provincial debt is now bigger than what they owe in their own homes.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks to this government raising the debt ceiling to $17.5 billion. Now, last year, the provincial treasurer made the argument that all he needed, a $2 billion increase in the debt ceiling, was for short-term rescheduling of debt. It's the same argument he gave the Leader of the Opposition earlier this morning. Now, with Bill 37, he's admitting, oops, sorry, folks, I just spent it all. Well, there's more there. Will the provincial treasurer now admit that when he said last year in this assembly that he needed a higher debt ceiling simply to reschedule Alberta's debt, that he was misleading this assembly and all Albertans?
Hear, hear.
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. That is, in fact, wrong, and anyone who says that is, in fact, shading the truth and is misleading the Assembly himself. What we did last year, Mr. Speaker, is present a balanced budget to Albertans. This government believes in a balanced budget. This government will achieve one. But as we expected, as we explained in our budget address in the early part of the session, Mr. Well, it's Friday morning. Welcome to the jungle. That's right. Mr. Speaker, we see that the members of the opposition party always put the worst-case scenario forward because they live in the world that unless there's a suggestion of something going wrong, they have nothing to talk about because they don't like to talk about the prospects and opportunities that exist in this province, and that's what we're talking about. We know that there's a great opportunity for us to bring forward a fiscal plan which does in fact balance the budget. And then the next day or so, Mr. Speaker, I'll be introducing spending control legislation. Spending control legislation which will control the size of our program spending and which will assure that if any increases in revenues take place, as I referred to already, the price of oil is up. If in fact any increase in revenues take place, then of course that'll go right to the deficit number. Now last year, Mr. Speaker, as I explained, we had a revenue shock. And the deficit entirely was caused by the drop in oil. And that's exactly what's happened, and it's fortunate we had the flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this year's speech from the throne promised freedom of information legislation. In the face of the Novotel fiasco, as embarrassing as it is for this government, it's pretty clear that the government is going to renege on that promise this session. My question is to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. What role has this minister, who is also the House Leader with authority over the legislature agenda, what role has he played in ensuring that the freedom of information legislation will never see the light of day in this legislature in this session?
Mr. Speaker, clearly the question is not within the area of responsibility of my portfolio.
Sounds like the rooster that thought the sun rose to hear him weaseling out. Weaseling out.
Obviously, you knew that it was going down a false track, so let's see what you have for a supplementary.
That you would make that editorial comment, Mr. Speaker.
Take your place. Take your place. Take your place, honorable member. Take your place, honorable member. Honorable member, if you check Beauchesne, you'll see that it was not within the responsibility of the minister. It's quite clear to you, quite clear to everyone else. And for you to get so riled up about that is too bad, because maybe you'll go back and study some Beauchesne. Order, honorable member. Order, honorable member. Orders of the day. No, you don't, honorable member. Honorable member, you do not have enough.